So today I'm mastering a couple tracks by the band Jigsaw Youth, who are awesome. I got to see them last year live. They killed it. These were produced and mixed just like the last batch of songs by Alan Day, and I am once again mastering. Let's listen for a second. The mixes are awesome. Alan crushed it, so did the band. And I kind of wanted to walk you through just my general thoughts on what was my thought process here approaching a mix that already kind of sounds this good? What kind of differences can we make? And most interesting, what types of general corrections am I doing before we hit any compression? So for me, it just sounds exciting and huge right out of the gate, but I was wondering a little bit about controlling that low end content. That low end is obviously what makes the track in part sound so big, of course, but I thought maybe we could pull down the middle a little bit. So what I did is I went and I found the bass frequency with Soothe. Soothe is more known for typically attenuating harmonics and vocals and cymbals and stuff like that, but I love this application for Soothe. And you can see the attenuation sort of wiggling around down here. That's because the bass fundamental note is sort of moving around too as the bass player plays different notes. This is a great way to kind of laser focus on where the bass, the problems, I won't call them problems, but where there could be corrections in the bass area could lie, and a dynamic way to attenuate those with laser precision. Okay, so after that, I decided to open up the mix. No one's gonna be surprised by this if you know my workflow. I just added air. This is really common. I didn't find the cymbals to be overly harsh or anything here. So the cool thing about that is it just lets me open things up. This isn't a crazy correction. This is my usual air band. We're adding 6 dB. We're making sure that the plugin itself doesn't peak. And then another old faithful here, and I affectionately refer to this as the can opener now after my friend Zane, I think, coined that phrase. This thing makes things more exciting, opens up the highs once again, but in a way that doesn't overly exacerbate the high mid-range. Again, that's a testament to the mix being so good. And I like the separation that this will bring to all the individual elements. I actually had a band I was working with recently asking for more separation. And when I put this on, they have no idea what I did. The band was Heavy Hex, by the way. But I put this on, and then the mix notes came back, and they were just like, oh, yeah, this is it. So I don't often love plugins like this where I don't exactly know what's going on, but I love Greg Wells. This one's totally a winner. However, when I use that, I'm often finding if it has one thing it does that I'm kind of I wish I could fix, I usually want to reinsert some low mid-range content, but I like to do it in a way that doesn't sound boxy, because the whole thing here is we want to add excitement, but we don't want it to feel, we want excitement, but we don't want to mid-scoop it. And so if we need to bring low mid-range backs, you're always in danger of that sounding boxy. Here, we don't want that to sound boxy. I love doing it with frequency-dependent saturation. So effectively, I'm going to use the solo button just to hear the bands that I'm going to add harmonics to. And it's going to be pretty narrow. It's just going to be this really specific area where I feel like after using Mixcentric, we could use a little back. But if you have headphones on, or you can actually hear this, when this is unbypassed, that's the coolest way to unscoop a mix. After that, we're starting to get into the beginnings of compression. This is something I like to do, particularly with big, heavy mixes like this. I'm going to use multiband compression. I'm going to find the line right where the kick, and in this case, also the bass guitar kind of end, but before the snare drum starts. And we're going to be able to see this stuff represented here. So you can feel or see the kick fundamental sort of around here, and you can kind of see the beginnings of the bass guitar fundamental, which also checks out with Soothe, right? This is right around where we had our Soothe. So this is just doing a little bit extra. It's right on the cusp of this range curve. So it's not getting attenuated as much as the kick, but we're still doing a little bit more there, but we're cutting it off before we hit the snare fundamental, which you'll be able to see right here. Cool, and that's tightening the mix. And then lastly, if you watched my last video, we talked about external plugins, how to set them up. I was setting them up to reamp. This time, I'm doing an external plugin into my Manly Varimu, and I'm sending, this is how much I'm sending out, and this is how much I'm getting back. And you'll notice a big difference here. Everything I did leading up to this guy right here was to control and shape before I hit like my first major compression stage. Now, when I say major compression stage, I'm only doing maybe a dB and a half of compression here. So while sonically it sounds major to me, the needles themselves actually aren't moving a ton. Yeah, and that's just my thought process here. I'm not entirely done with this master yet, but I think we've already made a really cool and appreciable difference. And yeah, I'm pumped on it. I can't wait to finish this up for the band, and I hope that you enjoyed this.